Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Kopidana Balaba, Grivardhari, Jaya Grivardhari. Kopidana Balaba, Grivardhari, Jaya Grivardhari. Kopidana Balaba, Grivardhari, Jaya Grivardhari. Yasodanandana, Raja Dhanaranjana, Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana. Yasodanandana, Raja Dhanaranjana, Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana. Yamunatiravarachari, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Yamunatiravarachari, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Yamunatiravarachari, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopidana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopidana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pravadakacharya Asadhara Siddhushi Shriman. His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol Slavas Abrani Bhaktam Slavas Shri Gurui Shri Grangi. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane. Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskadyade Siddharne. Om Agana Timirandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pradina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakan Svitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha-devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 20, Balimara Surrenders the Universe, text number 15. Dridam Patita Man Yagya Stabdos Yasmad Upekshana Much Chasang Sanatiko Yastvam Achirat Brashyase Striyaha Dridam Pandita Manyagya Stabdos Yasmad Upekshaya Machcha Sanatigo Yastvam Acharat Brashyase Striyaha. Ladies. Someone else? Dridam. So firmly convinced or fixed in your decision. Panditamani. Considering yourself very learned. Agya. At the same time foolish. Stabda. Impudent. Asi. You have become. Asmat. Of us. Upekshaya. By disregarding. Mat. Shasana. Atiga. Surpassing the jurisdiction of my administration. Ya. Such a person as you. Tvam. Yourself. Achirat. Very soon. Brashase. Will fall down. Striyaha. From all opulence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Although you have no knowledge, you have become a so-called learned person, and therefore you dare to be so impotent as to disobey my order. Because of disobeying me, you shall very soon be bereft of all your opulence. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Bali Maharaj was not Pandita Mani, or one who falsely assumes himself learned. Rather, he was Pandita Manya Gya, one who is so learned that all other learned persons worship him. And because he was so learned, he could disobey the order of his so-called spiritual master. He had no fear of any condition of material existence. Anyone cared for by the Lord Vishnu does not need to care about anyone else. Thus Bali Maharaj could never be bereft of all opulences. The opulences offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead are not to be compared to the opulences obtained by karma kanda. In other words, if a devotee becomes very opulent, it is to be understood that his opulence is a gift of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such opulence will never be vanquished, whereas the opulence achieved by one's fruitive activity may be vanquished at any moment. Although you have no knowledge, you have become a so-called learned person. Therefore you dare to be so impudent as to disobey my order. Because of disobeying me, you shall very soon be bereft of all your opulence. Om Vishnu Vraya Krishna Prasthaya Putaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Siddharane. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing his kirtans at night in Srivasanga, they didn't allow any outsiders to come in. Only the devotees were allowed to participate in those kirtans. And there were some people on the outside wanting to get in to find out what was going on inside. So one Brahmin met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the Ganges and in great anger said, because you don't allow me into the kirtans, I curse you. And he broke his thread. That you may not have any sense gratification, no material happiness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started to dance in ecstasy. Thank you very much. So practically everyone in the material world is anxious for material happiness in the form of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And therefore out of the four principles, namely religiousness, economic development, and sense gratification, liberation. Generally speaking, people are really only interested in religion as much as it will provide for economic development for their sense gratification. Hardly anyone's interested in religiosity in order to achieve liberation from the material concept of life. out of the Vaishyas, the other Shudras and Vaishyas, Kshatriyas and Brahmanas. Especially in Kali Yuga, there are no Brahmins, there are no Kshatriyas. There is just a few Vaishyas cheating the vast amount of Shudras. And therefore, the whole society is simply based upon sense gratification. Chintyam aparayam cha pralayantam upashitya kama papoga paramam etavam iti nischita asha pashishiterabhara kama kroda parayana ihanti kama bhogaratan ainene nata sanchayaha. They believe that to gratify their senses unto the end of life is a prime necessity of human civilization. And therefore there can be no measurement for their anxiety. Being bound by hundreds and thousands of desires, by lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. So everyone, from the biggest leader in present society down to the most insignificant person, they all have the same idea, to gratify their senses. So some are trying to gratify their senses by expanding their eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And the other side, the so-called opponents, because everyone's at odds with each other, are also trying to do the same thing, expand their opulence of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and utilizing the material resources to do so. But material resources, what are they? They're only transformations of Brahman. They're only transformations of Brahman into things like earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. But these are not permanent. They're just flickering like on a movie screen. They appear for a moment and then disappear. But people like movies, so this is just another movie that everyone's observing and trying to get a prominent position, prominent role in the movie. But after all, it's just a theater. And at the end of the day, even William Shakespeare says, those who read William Shakespeare, that all the world's a stage. And everyone has their entrances and exits. And everyone in their own time, they play different parts in that theater. Or what is it? The whole world's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Or the other example given is the Himalayas. Huge mountains are about to give birth. The mountains are rocking back and forth. Everyone's coming to see what the Himalayas, huge mountains, are going to give birth to. And finally, after all the noise and the trembling and the rocking and the earthquakes, one mouse runs out, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So the material world is going on with all the news about all the dissension, all the plots, but ultimately it's just some people want to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and they think there's not enough for everyone to go around, so I'm going to use my power to make sure that I eat, sleep, mate, and defend in the best possible way. But there's no understanding of the soul. There's no understanding of the goal of life is liberation. Tete vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu darashaya ye bahir artamanina. They don't know the goal of life is to obtain Vishnu, and therefore they're interested in these insignificant things, which to us may seem very insignificant. Everything goes on to seem significant. For instance, Prabhupada was in one morning walk in Mayapur, and during that morning walk he came out with a statement, 1975, which shocked everyone. He said the whole civilization, which is meant to keep people in darkness, will soon come to an end with the next war. And then he said that war is coming very, very soon. And of course all the devotees were shocked. They were all 20 years old. I'm too young to die. And therefore a lot of questions were asked about the war that's going to come and what to do about it, etc. And then Prabhupada said, basically speaking, whether you die today, you die tomorrow, what's the difference? You're going to die anyhow. It's not that if I live for another 20 years, my life will be glorious. That if you want to make preparations, Prabhupada said, for the war, first of all, chant Hare Krishna. That's the best preparation, so that your next lifetime may be spiritual. That's the best way of preparing for everything. If we think, oh, now the war is not, just like afterward, the war didn't come that year or the next year. Of course, it went on in our movement for some time, prepare for the next war. We even bought whole properties in Germany in order to prepare for the war. And then there was Y2K, and people think, well, now it's coming. And nothing happened. So we're safe. We don't have to worry about anything. We're going to live forever. As I said before about the devotee, his father is 90-something, and he had a quadruple bypass surgery. And the son was always telling, Father, it's time to get serious about spiritual life. And after the quadruple bypass surgery for his heart, the son went to the father and said, now, Dad, it's time to get serious. He said, no, the operation was successful. I have nothing to worry about. Mañana, tomorrow I'll get serious. When the sword's right over my head, I think, well, maybe it's time to chant Hare Krishna seriously. And then after it's all over, oh, that was all right. Well, I'm safe. Like these people are in an elevator, and the elevator is falling down, and they get in the, oh my God, God save us, and then it stops. Oh my God, we're safe. No problem. And then it starts falling, oh no, help, save us, and it stops again. Oh, we're safe, it's all right. Oh, it's falling, my God, God save us, and then it stops, and the elevator door opens, and the people walk out and say, hey, what's on television tonight? So quick we forget what the real problems are. Matter of fact, people, that's the best time to get them to take a book. In the airport, you stop someone and you say, where are you coming from? Oh, I'm coming from a funeral. This is this person understands something. And inevitably, these people would take a book. They realize that there's some possibility that even something like that might happen to me. It's like if you drive on the street, I don't know about here, but in America, if there's an accident, everyone slows down. Not because they have to, they want to see if there's any dead bodies they can see, because they've never seen a dead body. Because things are so carefully hidden that the only time you ever see dead bodies is on video games. Matter of fact, nowadays in the news, they use video games. Because they're so real, the video games, they don't even bother have to go to the war zone. They just show video games and pretend this is some part coming from the war zone, and people believe it. So we've been so conditioned to forget what reality is, and we don't want to be confronted with it. But reality is always there, and eventually, mrityu sarvaharasya, at the time of death, everything is taken away. And we're taken away too. Where we're going, that depends upon what we're doing now. Therefore, Bali Maharaj, this idea of the difference between spiritual opulence and material opulence. I mean, what is material opulence? Why do people want material opulence to begin with? It's because they want security, ultimately. Why do people collect billions and billions of dollars? Because they feel insecure. They think if the price of gold goes down, then maybe I won't get my 3 pieces of bread tomorrow. I only have $5 billion in the bank. It's not enough. And indeed, that happened in the 1920s. I mean, literally speaking, at the end of the 1920s, they had what was called the stock market crash. And there are people who had literally, in today's worth, billions of dollars in the stock market. And within the next 10 years, they lost everything. Because of all the manipulations of the economy, the way they did it, is that it was made in such a way as to cheat everyone, including the billionaires, of their money. Therefore, everyone feels insecure, because everyone knows who's ever controlling the society is not controlling it for my best interest. They're not making the economy or their policies simply to make me happy. Therefore, everyone's insecure, and therefore everyone's trying to collect resources to make themselves feel secure so they can believe that they're not going to die tomorrow. I may die, theoretically, but maybe in 300 years. Therefore, I give a little donation every year to the scientists so they can prolong my life. But at least if I have some money, I won't die tomorrow from freezing cold. They won't put me in the park over here to die on a frosty night. So at least I'll have enough to survive. Or as they say in English, he who hits and runs away lives to fight another day. You heard that expression before? So everyone is trying to prevent death. That's according to the Bhagavatam. That's why they get a family, because they hope the children will grow up and they'll protect them in their old age. Then children, nowadays they're a little, kind of like a special hobby for people, mostly. Something to play around with for a few years. But ultimately they're hoping that when they get old and they're invalid, that their children will take care of them. Of course they don't take care of their children when they're dependent. They send them out in the street to get a training from the other little demons running around. And the other little demons running around are not going to train them up to take care of their parents. They're just trained up to how to become more and more egotistic and selfish. Anyhow, that's the idea behind children, for the most part, unless one is a devotee, trying to raise a child like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, so he becomes a devotee, a pure devotee, and helps liberate the world. Other than that, people are just having them as hobbies or accidents or whatever else it is, or with the hope that in the future they'll grow up and they'll maintain and protect me. But that does it. Ultimately, no one's protected. Deha patya kalatradishu atma sanyeshva satsupi tesham pramato nidanam pashanapi napashyati. Deha, the body. Deha patya. Patya means the wife or the husband. Deha patya kaladra. Kaladra means the wife. Deha patya. Patya means children. And kaladra means the wife. And if you have children, you have a wife, then deha patya kalatradishu adishu. You must have other things too. You don't have a house and other things, you're not going to keep the wife. And you have to have things in the house, furniture, and a kitchen, some adishu. So many things follow. But what is it all for? Why is there a kitchen? So we don't die from starvation. Why is there a house? So we can put on heat during the winter. So we can protect our body. The whole thing is get the body to survive as long as possible. Deha patya kalatra atma sanyeshva satsupi. In order to protect the soul wants protection. Atma sanyeshva satsupi. Asatsupi, but it's, why do we get all these temporary things? For protection. Deha patya kalatradishu atma sanyeshva satsupi. Tesham pramato nidanam. But one is mad because he doesn't see these soldiers. They're all fallible, asatsupi. They themselves can't survive. So how can they help me survive? Ultimately. Of course, temporarily, we may accept these things because we're trying to perform devotional service. And we want this body to live as long as possible so we can perform as much service as possible to Krishna. Atma saneshva tesham pramato nidanam. They don't see that none of this is going to protect them, and they can't protect their dependents either. Pashana pina pashyati. So therefore, Bali Maharaj was not taking shelter of Sukracharya to keep his temporary things, because he understood that if he takes shelter of Krishna, then he'll realize he's eternal. If we realize eternal, what more can we want? All these things that protect us we're not so much attached to them anymore, because we don't need protection if we're eternal. And if we have knowledge, if we're aware of things as they actually are, then we know exactly what to do to become blissful all the time by taking shelter of Krishna. So we don't need all these things to make ourselves happy. I don't need any new toys every year to make myself happy, because I'll always be happy in association with Krishna and his devotees. Therefore, that happiness of bliss, knowledge, and eternity is the greatest opulence. And everything else is just trying to get some knowledge of how to get something to make me happy and give me some security. That's all people want, is security and happiness. Controlling the material nature and getting some pleasure from it. And learning how to do it. So we accept authorities, people who give us knowledge of how to become happy and secure. We accept them as our authorities, as our saviors. But the greatest savior, the greatest authority, is that which actually gives us permanent happiness, permanent, real knowledge, which can give us permanent happiness forever. Because permanent happiness is forever. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for the lecture. I read Srimad Bhagavatam and other holy texts, holy books, and we can learn a lot. There's a lot of deep knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. And these books, we have also some differences here, how to approach historically. There are different basis. Of course, the guru was also the judge and the doctor and everything. So how to approach this historical difference that we can learn more for serving others. And
well, history, ultimately there is no history. It's the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah.
5 billion years ago, people are eating, sleeping, mating, and defending.
Yeah.
And today, people are eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And in 5 billion years from now, people will be eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They may be wearing a different dress, or they may be eating something, sometimes with their hands, sometimes with a fork, sometimes with a knife. They may be sleeping on a soft bed, or they may be sleeping on a water mat, but it's the same thing. we're you can say your questions in there. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us perspective. This is from time immemorial, different times, different places, just to give us the principles behind devotional service. But whether or not, all these details, they're not so important as the fact the principles that are being demonstrated. Anything else?
There's a question from Dr. Doman. He sent to me. He says that material and spiritual development increase in parallel. Is that okay? Somehow they go together.
Sometimes. Usually not. Usually, as you make spiritual advancement, your interest in material advancement diminishes. If your interest in material advancement is increasing along with your spiritual advancement, there's probably not very much spiritual advancement. You may get material opulence by the grace of Krishna, but that doesn't mean their interest in getting material advancement should be increasing. Krishna may provide what's necessary for service, but that doesn't mean that necessarily we're trying to cultivate it consciously at the expense of our spiritual advancement. It's like a scale. If one side of the scale goes up, usually the other side goes down. If you want one side to go up, you want the other one to go up with it, it's not going to work. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Here is one question from internet. One who has a fault-finding nature is a disgrace to the whole Vaishnava community. Please explain.
Well, bhakti means love. If it's a devotee community, it's love for Krishna and love for everyone and everything in relation to Krishna. So it's hard to, if we're envious, which is what we consider a fault-finding mentality, we're envious of Krishna and his devotees, then that's not going to help our development of love very much, of bhakti. It's like someone's in the shower and he's getting clean. If you're criticizing them for being dirty, it has no meaning because they're in the shower. So what's the value of criticizing someone who's in the shower getting clean for being dirty? Now, there may be some room for criticism if it's the appropriate authority who has someone's interest in heart, trying to help them advance, to point out some of the anarthas or some of the obstacles they have for advancement. But that should be done out of love rather than out of envy. Nor should we be blind to people's faults, but we shouldn't become envious of them because they have those faults. But we should try to see the good qualities and try to avoid activities or mentality will unnecessarily have us associate with people's faults. It's like those two saintly people, they were crossing a river and one lady came along and said, "Can you help me across?" So one of the saintly renounced people, took her on his shoulder and had her cross the river. So the other one became very disturbed, very angry. How can you touch a woman like that? So some kilometers later, he said, how did you do that? So the saintly person said, well, I only carried her for, a few yards, but you've been carrying her for kilometers now. Anything else? Hvala. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.